Hey guys, how's it going? All right, I found this article somebody had linked to or directed me to that talks about Detective Serino and how Serino felt pressured to suggest George should be uh, charged in this case. And I know a lot of people had said in the past that Serino was the guy who had suggested that George should be at least tried for manslaughter. He wasn't for second degree murder, but for manslaughter. So that was one of the things that we had talked about, and a lot of people had suggested that through all of our conversations. I didn't know about this article. Apparently, it's an older article from July 12th. Since I thought it was interesting, I thought I would share it with you guys. As you can see, detective in Zimmerman case said he was pressured to file charges. It says the lead investigator, of course we know Serino, who sought manslaughter charges against George, told the FBI that a sergeant and two other officers tried to pressure him into making an arrest in the controversial case, even though he didn't think there was enough evidence. So to all the people who keep saying that Serino wanted to see George arrested and thought that he was guilty of manslaughter, well, here you go. Here's evidence that that's not true. Serino didn't think there was enough evidence for an arrest, and if it were his choice, there would be no arrest. Could this be why Serino was removed from the case? Right around the time that this article came out? So it says here that Serino made headlines when evidence was released in the case showing that he sought manslaughter charges against Zimmerman, even while his chief publicity officer said there was no probable cause to arrest him. But a document released Thursday, a couple months ago, cast doubt on Serino's prior sworn affidavit seeking criminal charges and raised questions about the credibility of the law enforcement witness in the murder case against Zimmerman for the shooting death of Trayvon. So he was telling the FBI that he was concerned that people inside the police department were leaking information. And I'm assuming that the people that were leaking the information were not the people who thought George was innocent, but rather the people that were pushing him to press charges against George, even though there was no evidence that George was guilty of anything. So Serino names three people: Sergeant Barnes, Officer Rebecca, and Perkins as the people who pressured him in the incident. And Serino says that, he's told him that he didn't think that there was evidence to file charges. So it goes on to say that, Serino doesn't mention the race of the people who were pressuring him, but sources told the Miami Herald that Barnes and Perkins are black, and that the lady Rebecca is married to a black man. So all three had some sort of racial interest in the case. And all three of them were called in by their supervisor and questioned about leaking information. And of course, the police department didn't really want to talk about it. So they got Benjamin Crump here saying he's always had the position that there's something going on in the police department. And he says the only thing that really matters is the inconsistencies in George's statements. Serino, a 15-year veteran of the department who was a major crime investigator, was demoted last month. And we heard some of Trayvon supporters suggesting that he stepped down voluntarily. Well, here it is. The article says that he was demoted. Tapes of the interview with Zimmerman showed him poking holes in the former Neighborhood Watch volunteer's account of what happened the night he killed Trayvon. Serino said to the FBI that Zimmerman had a little hero complex and sounded scripted. And as an investigator, he's got a lot of nerve to make those kind of suggestions without any evidence. Well, as far as being a little hero, that I think everybody wants to be the hero. Everybody wants to help people when they can. Everybody wants to be out there making the world a better place. So yeah, I guess we all have that. The sounding scripted, well, that's typical, especially when you've told your story 5, 10, 15 times. You just keep saying the same thing. because this is what happened. So it does come across scripted. In fact, listen to I think it's witness number 5, the blonde that goes out and said she didn't see anything, but she heard some stuff. If you listen to her statement in the very beginning, or pretty much through the whole thing, it's as if she's told the story 100,000 times and she's just saying it over. It's very repeated. It's normal when somebody tells a story several times. However, he said he believes Zimmerman targeted Trayvon because of his attire, the circumstances, and the recent burglaries in the area, and nothing to do with the skin color, which makes perfect sense. I mean, here you've got a kid that's covering his head. He's walking around looking suspicious, circumstances, and there was recent burglaries in the area. So all of those come together. In his FBI interview, Serino accused Sergeant Barnes of being friendly with Tracy Martin, Trayvon's father. He said Tracy Martin at first understood why no charges were filed, but later changed course and accused Zimmerman of racial profiling. And if you think about it, that indicates that he was led to change his opinion. At first, he understood that his son beat the crap out of the neighborhood watch guy, and the neighborhood watch guy pulled out his gun and shot him in self-defense. So everybody was pretty much over it. So if you want to say that the police had some sort of role in making this unbalanced case, you could say that those 3 people, the sergeant and the 2 officers, are the guilty parties, because even after we had all the evidence that George was not guilty of anything, did they insist that George be charged. And the fact that they're either black or married to a black person gives them incentive or a reason to do that. So those 3 people should definitely be investigated. They should be charged and at least be part of this case. Everything that they said, everything that they brought to the case should be part of this case, and we definitely should hear it all. Crump denied that Tracy ever changed postures. Of course, we trust Crump. Crump said that Martin sought legal counsel that very day. Serino told him no charges would be filed. But we know, after seeing what Serino testified to the FBI, of course we haven't seen the FBI's testimony yet, but we know what Serino said, and that is that he was pressured by 2 blacks and somebody who's married to a black within the police department to charge Zimmerman, even though George did nothing wrong. Records released show that Sergeant Barnes, a 25-year veteran of the police department, told the FBI that he believed the black community would be in an uproar if Zimmerman was not charged. The community will be satisfied if an arrest takes place. The FBI quoted him saying, Barnes felt the shooting was not racially motivated, but it was a man shooting an unarmed kid. It says here, in all, the FBI interviewed about 35 people, and of course, the defense should have access to all that, anything that was recorded. And we know the defense was only provided 54 pages from the FBI, based on the hearing that we heard with Judge Nelson last week. And here it says that there's at least 300 pages. So at least here we can see that Serino, and this is the whole reason for this video, never wanted to charge George, never felt there was enough evidence to charge George with a crime. And in fact, there was no police or the DA's office, nobody wanted to charge George except for these racist police people. 2 black people and 1 white person married to a black person. Apparently, if you're married to a black person, you can be reverse racist as well, or if you're close, you have close friends that are black and that they have they have a belief that Trayvon is innocent. Because I've noticed that from a lot of my commenters, either black people who are commenting on my videos or people who are are either married or dating black people seem to have this issue where they just can't see the facts through the trees. For some reason, because the guy that got shot was black, that's all they can see is the color of the skin. The rest of us, the people who actually investigate and try to figure out what happened, don't care what color skin somebody has. It's just ridiculous. I mean, how does it matter what color skin somebody has? If you're the victim, you're the victim. If you're not, you're not. Anybody that tries to say that, George did something wrong that night because he shot a black kid, that's racist. Because if he would have shot a white kid, would that have been okay? Would there have been an outcry? Or if Trayvon was white and George was black, would that have been okay? And we know, well, there's a case right here that just happened here locally of a kid, a young guy, black guy, that shot his mother's boyfriend and claimed stand your ground. Well, unfortunately for him, the evidence was against him. But, as far as I was concerned, I gave him all the benefits of the doubt. I want to see that he was actually in fear for his life. The story goes that the father-in-law had a knife, but when the police came, they didn't find the knife. So that was the problem. So that's why they're going to charge him. Because, there was no evidence that the guy had been beaten. There was nobody, like in this case with George was all bloodied up. And Trayvon wasn't, so that's how we could tell right away. We don't even. If the kid had come home and his father-in-law beat the crap out of him and busted up his nose and left marks on the back of his head and everything, and then the kid shot his father-in-law, well, he would be walking free, because usually when you see one guy with a lot of injuries and the other guy with none, you're going to assume the guy with the injuries is the one that was getting beat, the one that was crying out for help. So that's what the video was about. Serino never wanted to charge George, and neither did any of the police except for the three that happened to be racist because they were either black or married to a black person.